Welcome back to the Timeless Wisdom Podcast. We're going to be exploring hypocrisy today.
Oh, interesting.
And we'll be looking at verses 15 and 16 of Surah Al-Baqarah. That's the second chapter of the Quran.
Right.
And we'll also be taking a look at a commentary on those verses.
Cool.
And, it's really fascinating to see how this ancient wisdom, from the Quran has these parallels with modern psychology.
Oh, wow.
And so we're going to unpack all that today.
So good.
And see what we can learn from it to try to improve ourselves.
Awesome. So it's interesting, right? Like how the Quran doesn't just say hypocrisy is bad, but it actually kind of like delves into the mindset of the hypocrite. So for example, these verses describe God mocking hypocrites.
Oh, wow.
Now, of course, this doesn't mean that God is literally like laughing at them.
Right.
But it's more about the natural consequences that come from their choices.
So it's not like God is making fun of them.
No.
It's more like their actions are leading them to a downfall.
Yeah. You got it.
Okay.
Think of it like this. You're trying to navigate a maze blindfolded. You bump into walls, right?
Right.
Get lost.
Yeah.
Well, hypocrisy is kind of like that.
Interesting.
These verses describe it as like a blindness of insight.
Okay.
So like even though they have access to guidance, they make choices that lead them astray.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of the idea of cognitive dissonance in psychology, which is when people have certain beliefs.
Right.
And then they're presented with evidence that contradicts their beliefs.
Yeah.
They would rather just stick with their existing beliefs
Totally.
than change their minds even when they're wrong.
It's like they can't handle being wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that ties in really well with another verse from the Quran,
Okay.
which is, "Indeed, it is not the eyes that turn blind, but the hearts turn blind, those that are in the chests."
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, I've always found that verse to be so powerful.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not about a lack of knowledge,
Right.
but it's a problem with their perception.
It's like their understanding is blocked.
Yeah. And that brings us to this idea of buying error,
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one.
which is how the Quran describes hypocrites.
Uh-huh.
They're buying error in exchange for guidance.
Like they're making a bad trade.
Yeah. So why would anyone do that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What does the commentary say about that?
Well, it paints a picture of the hypocrite as somebody who's really struggling with insecurity
Okay.
and low self-esteem. They're constantly afraid of being exposed.
Oh, wow.
So they cling to their falsehoods
Okay.
because facing the truth just feels too overwhelming.
So it's like they're trapped.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
And that actually sounds a lot like imposter syndrome
Oh, yeah.
from psychology.
That's a great connection.
Yeah.
So imposter syndrome is that feeling of like inadequacy.
Right.
You're always worried about being found out as a fraud.
Like you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that feeling can drive people to just maintain a false facade,
Right.
even if it means compromising their values.
I'd rather keep up appearances than be honest.
Right.
And this struggle is captured in a poem from the commentary.
Oh, wow. What does it say?
It says, "If I do not commit a despicable deed out of fear of people, then I hold people more noble than I hold myself."
Wow.
Really makes you think.
Yeah, like, who am I really trying to please here?
Yeah.
Am I more worried about what other people think of me
Yeah,
than what I think of myself?
exactly.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that true strength comes from aligning our actions with our values,
Absolutely.
regardless of what other people think.
It's about doing the right thing, even when it's hard.
It's easy to hear all this and think like, oh, that's not me.
Right.
I'm a good person.
Yeah.
But, I think we have to be careful about dismissing this too quickly.
I agree.
Don't you think?
Yeah, we all have blind spots. Places where our desires or our ego kind of clouds our judgment.
Yeah.
The real challenge is to be honest with ourselves.
Right.
And look for those subtle ways that hypocrisy might be creeping in.
So how do we do that? Well, the commentary talks about the importance of self-reflection.
Oh.
So like taking time each day
Uh-huh.
to really honestly evaluate your actions and intentions.
So like, what am I doing?
Yeah. And like, why am I doing it?
And like, does this match up with what I believe?
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
So you're asking yourself like,
Yeah.
am I living in accordance with what I believe is right?
Right.
Are there inconsistencies between my values and my behavior?
That's a great starting point.
Yeah.
But sometimes even when we know what we're doing wrong,
Yeah.
it can be really hard to actually change.
Absolutely.
Like to break those bad habits.
It's tough.
What does the Quran say about that?
Yeah.
Well, the Quran really emphasizes the importance of seeking guidance.
Oh.
It's acknowledging that we're not perfect.
Right.
We need help to get through this.
Yeah.
And it encourages us to turn to God for support.
So it's not just about figuring things out on your own.
Yeah.
It's also about reaching out for help when you need it.
You got it.
And that help can come from a lot of different places.
Absolutely.
Like prayer, studying the Quran, or talking to a mentor.
Right. Or even a therapist if you need that.
And it's interesting how that kind of connects with modern psychology too.
Oh, totally.
Like in therapy.
Yeah.
You explore your thoughts and behaviors.
You figure out those unhealthy patterns.
Yeah.
And then you develop strategies for change.
Right. The same message.
Yeah. Whether you're coming at it from a spiritual perspective or a psychological perspective.
We all have the potential to grow.
Absolutely.
But it takes work.
It does.
So we've been talking about how hypocrites buy error.
Right.
But how do we reverse that?
How do we buy guidance instead?
Yeah.
That's the question.
What does the commentary say about that?
Well, it emphasizes recognizing the value of guidance.
Okay.
It's not just about avoiding punishment.
Right.
It's understanding that aligning yourself with truth brings fulfillment.
Okay.
Peace.
And purpose.
Yeah.
So it's about shifting our motivation.
Right.
From being afraid of the consequences.
Yeah, like fear-based to something more positive.
To I'm doing this because it's going to make my life better.
Yeah. It leads to a more fulfilling life.
So true happiness comes from living according to your deepest values.
Absolutely.
Lining yourself with a higher purpose.
That's it.
Okay.
That's what it's all about.
But I got to say, sometimes it feels a little overwhelming.
I know what you mean.
Where do I even start with all this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's what we'll talk about when we come back. We'll dive into some tips and techniques for putting all this into practice.
Okay, so we're back.
We are.
And I'm really excited to hear about those practical tips.
You bet.
So, how can we actually live out these principles?
So it all starts with small, consistent steps.
Okay.
The commentary really emphasizes mindfulness.
Okay.
So before you do anything, before you act or speak, just pause for a second.
Okay.
And ask yourself, is this aligned with my values?
Right.
Is this truthful? Is this beneficial? So it's about developing that inner awareness.
Yeah, it's you're building that muscle of checking in with yourself.
Exactly. Oh. And any habit, it takes time.
Right.
Don't get discouraged if you mess up.
Yeah.
Just keep practicing.
Okay.
Keep seeking guidance.
Keep trying. What are some other things that we can do?
Well, remember that poem.
Oh, yeah.
If I do not commit a despicable deed out of fear of people, then I hold people more noble than I hold myself.
Right.
So it's a call to really prioritize your own self-respect above what other people think.
But that's hard.
It is hard.
It's
yeah.
We live in a world where everyone's watching you.
Social media.
Yeah.
Everybody's got an opinion.
So how do we deal with that?
Well, it goes back to strengthening that connection with your own inner compass.
Okay.
That divine guidance, through prayer.
Okay.
Reflection on the Quran.
So when your actions are based on truth, integrity,
you get this confidence that you don't need external validation.
So I'm not looking for other people to tell me I'm good.
No, you're good.
I know it myself.
You feel it inside.
Okay.
And it's a journey.
Right.
Not a destination.
It's not like I arrive and then I'm done.
No, you're going to make mistakes. Yeah. You're going to falter.
Right.
But the beauty of it is there's always room for forgiveness. You can always start again.
So even if I've messed up in the past,
totally,
it's not too late.
Never too late.
To turn things around.
The commentary emphasizes God's infinite mercy, forgiveness. So you recognize your mistakes, you learn from them, and you recommit to that path of guidance.
So it can feel overwhelming to think about changing my whole life.
I know.
But like you were saying, those small steps, consistent effort.
That's the key.
Knowing that I can always turn back and feel more manageable.
It's about progress, not perfection. Every step you take is a victory.
This has been such a great conversation.
I've really enjoyed it.
I feel like I've learned so much about hypocrisy.
Me too.
And about myself.
It's all connected.
So for our listeners, if you want to learn more about this,
definitely check out the full commentary
on Surah Al-Baqarah.
Yeah.
And you can also connect with us
at The Broke Entrepreneur
for more discussions like this.
We'd love to have you.
Awesome.
The Quran's wisdom is timeless. Apply it today.